The Galactic Council sat in the Grand Hall, its members facing each other across a massive table that seemed to stretch forever. The room buzzed with the low hum of quiet conversations, the voices of alien representatives from across the galaxy. The humans, a small group of representatives from Earth, sat in the back, watching the debate unfold. It had been an intense week of discussions, arguments, and accusations. For years, humanity had been a rising force in the galaxy, but instead of being welcomed, they were pushed aside. The larger, more powerful species saw humanity as a threat. They feared what humans could become. The Galactic Council, made up of various alien species, had kept them at arm's length. Humanity had been allowed to join the council, but treated as an outsider, never truly given a seat at the table. The humans fought back, but not with violence. They had chosen instead to rise through their ingenuity, their creativity, and their desire to explore the unknown. Now, after decades of tension, the Council had put humanity in an impossible position. Either accept the rules of the Galactic Council or leave the galaxy. It was a simple choice, but one that carried immense weight. The humans had been given only a short time to make up their minds, but the choice was never truly theirs to make. It had been forced upon them. And now, the time had come to decide their future. One of the council members, a tall, elegant alien from the Andromeda system, stood up. "The humans have had enough time," she said, her voice cold and stern. "We have offered them peace, and they have refused it. It is clear they do not belong here. They must choose their fate, stay or leave." The room fell silent. The tension was thick, and every member of the council knew the weight of this decision. The humans had been waiting for this moment, but they had not yet spoken. The silence stretched on, unbearable. Then, one of the human representatives stood up, a calm and steady figure. His name was Marcus, and he was the one who had been chosen to speak for humanity. The room's focus shifted to him, and for a moment, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. "We are not afraid," Marcus said, his voice strong but measured. "We have faced challenges, we have fought wars, and we have built a future that is ours. And now we are making a choice. The choice to leave." A ripple of shock spread across the council. Some members gasped, others exchanged surprised looks. The decision had been unexpected, yet it was final. Humanity had chosen to leave the council, to leave the galaxy that had once rejected them. The humans weren't defeated. They weren't running. They were leaving on their terms. The council members, who had hoped for a different outcome, could not hide their shock. For a moment, they were speechless. They had never expected this from humanity. The leader of the council, a giant alien with skin that shimmered like silver, stood up slowly, his face unreadable. "You may leave," he said, "but know this, once you leave, there is no going back." Marcus nodded, his expression unwavering. "We know," he said quietly, "and we don't intend to." As the humans turned and walked out of the room, leaving the council in stunned silence, it was clear. Humanity was leaving the galaxy, but they weren't running away. They were stepping into the unknown, ready to carve out their own future. The council watched them go, and for the first time, they were unsure if they had made the right choice. Humanity's decision to leave the galaxy wasn't made in a day. It was the result of years of struggle, disappointment, and relentless effort. The humans on Earth had faced unimaginable challenges, and every time they were knocked down, they got back up stronger. This was a race that had fought its way through countless wars, social upheavals, and environmental disasters, yet always found a way to survive. Their resilience was their greatest strength. It wasn't that humans had been unaware of the dangers surrounding them. For decades, they had been a growing force in the galaxy, steadily advancing their technology and their influence. But it was clear to the other species in the galaxy that humanity's rapid rise posed a threat to the established order. As a result, the more powerful species sought to keep the humans in check, pushing them to the sidelines of galactic politics. At first, Humanity had been willing to play by the rules, to find a way to coexist with the other species. They had agreed to be part of the Galactic Council, to follow its protocols and regulations, hoping that over time they would earn the respect of the other species. But time and again, they found themselves ignored, dismissed, and excluded from important decisions. It became clear that the Council wasn't interested in giving humans a real voice. Instead, they wanted to control them, to limit their growth. Humanity's leaders knew that if they continued to stay, they would be trapped in a cycle of frustration and helplessness. They would never be treated as equals. That's when the decision was made. The Council had left humanity with no real choice. The only option was to leave and find their own way. Back on Earth, the decision was met with a mix of emotions. Some were sad to see humanity's relationship with the galaxy end, but many felt a deep sense of pride. They knew that the time had come for humanity to take control of its own future. The people of Earth were resilient, and they were ready to face whatever came next. The human fleet, a vast armada of ships, began to take shape. It wasn't just a show of force. It was a symbol of humanity's determination. The ships were designed with the best technology Earth had to offer. Every ship, large and small, was a reflection of human ingenuity, capable of withstanding the harshest conditions in space. They had learned to adapt and overcome, to build and repair what was needed. As the fleet prepared to depart, the people of Earth watched with mixed emotions. They saw their fleet leave with a sense of hope in their hearts. The unknown stretched out before them. But they were no longer afraid. For once, humanity was in control of its own destiny. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched with a sense of unease. They had thought humanity's strength lay only in their numbers and their ability to fight. They never understood that it was humanity's creativity, their adaptability, and their resilience that made them a force to be reckoned with. Now they were witnessing the rise of a power they had underestimated for too long. Humanity was leaving, and the Council's efforts to control them had failed. The galaxy would never be the same again. As humanity's fleet disappeared into the vastness of space, the members of the Galactic Council were left in stunned silence. The realization of what had just happened was slowly sinking in. For years, they had dismissed humanity as just another young and naive species, one that could easily be controlled or ignored. Now, as they watched the last of the human ships leave the galaxy, they understood the depth of their mistake. The Council had never truly believed that humanity would stand up for itself. They had thought that after years of being pushed aside, humans would eventually accept their place as subordinates. Instead, humanity had chosen to leave, not in defeat, but in defiance. The very thing the Council feared had come true. Humans weren't just survivors. They were innovators. They had the strength to create their own destiny, and they had chosen to leave the old rules behind. There was a sense of panic in the room as the Council members looked at one another. The quiet murmur of discussion grew louder, and each member began to voice their own concerns. The Andromeda representative, who had once been one of humanity's fiercest critics, now found herself struggling to explain what had gone wrong. "We underestimated them," she admitted, her voice tinged with regret. "We thought they were weak, that they would bend to our will. Instead, they've proven that they are stronger than we imagined." One of the Council's oldest members, a creature whose skin shimmered with the colors of the nebulae, spoke up. "They are not just strong. They are resourceful, intelligent, and determined. Their creativity is something none of us understood. We have lost them, and it may be too late to bring them back." A hush fell over the room as the weight of those words sank in. The Council had always been a place where the most powerful species in the galaxy came together to maintain order. But now, they were faced with the reality that they had pushed a species to the point of leaving, a species that could no longer be ignored. And unlike other species that might have been easily dealt with, humanity was different. They were not a species that could be easily conquered or controlled. One of the younger Council members, a species known for their sharp intellect and diplomacy, stood up. "We cannot simply accept this. We must bring them back. They are a valuable asset to our galaxy, and we cannot let them walk away. If we do, they will become a threat to everything we have built. But the older council members were less certain. They knew that attempting to force humanity back could lead to a conflict no one wanted. The human fleet was already too powerful, and the last thing the council needed was a war. The diplomatic path seemed to have closed, and the fear of what humanity might do in their newfound freedom began to set in. While the council debated their next move, humanity was already moving forward, creating a future of their own choosing. With every passing moment, the council's position grew weaker. They had pushed humanity to the edge, and now they were watching as that same humanity marched into the unknown, unafraid of what lay ahead. The council had failed, and it was becoming clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity's fleet, a massive armada of ships, had begun its journey into the unknown. As the final ship left Earth's atmosphere, a wave of awe and excitement swept over the people of Earth. For the first time in centuries, humans were truly free. They had made their choice, and now they were stepping into a new chapter of their history. The fleet was unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Each ship was a testament to human creativity and ingenuity, designed with technology that far outpaced anything the Galactic Council had ever expected. The ships were sleek, powerful, and equipped with advanced weapon systems. But it wasn't just about strength. The ships also had the ability to travel vast distances quickly, with engines that bent the very fabric of space itself. The humans had learned to harness the energy of the stars, and now they were ready to use that power to carve their own path. As the fleet moved through space, a sense of pride filled the hearts of every human. They weren't just leaving. They were venturing out to explore the stars, to find new worlds where they could live freely, without the shadow of the Galactic Council hanging over them. The fleet's destination was unknown, but that only added to the excitement. There was no limit to what they could achieve now. In the command center of the largest ship, the Odyssey, Captain Sarah Larkin stood, staring at the massive screen in front of her. The galaxy was vast, and their path ahead was uncertain, but Sarah felt a deep sense of purpose. She had spent her entire life dreaming of this moment, the chance to lead humanity into a new era. As she watched the stars streak by, she knew this was just the beginning. The Council had underestimated them, but now they were going to see what humans were truly capable of. "Captain, we've received a transmission," one of the officers called out, snapping Sarah out of her thoughts. She turned to the screen, and a hologram flickered to life. It was an old, familiar face, Marcus, the human representative who had spoken at the council meeting. "Captain," Marcus's voice came through. "We've made it. We're leaving the galaxy behind us. The council can't stop us now." Sarah smiled. "Good. Let them watch. We're making our own way now." But even as she spoke, Sarah knew that their journey wouldn't be without challenges. The unknown was full of dangers, and while humanity was resourceful, they would need every bit of that creativity to survive. The fleet was equipped for combat, yes, but there was more to this mission than just defending themselves. They needed to explore, to discover new worlds, and to find a place where they could truly thrive. As the fleet continued its journey, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. The galaxy that had once rejected them was now behind them. Ahead lay a future of possibility. The journey would be long and filled with uncertainty, but humanity had never been afraid of a challenge. They had always found a way to survive, to adapt, and to grow. The stars stretched out before them, and with every passing second, humanity was stepping further away from the past and closer to their own future. The fleet was no longer just a group of ships. It was a symbol of everything humanity stood for: resilience, innovation, and the unbreakable will to never give up. They were ready to face whatever came next, knowing that they would create their own destiny. The battle raged on, the human fleet struggling to hold its ground against the mysterious alien ships that had emerged from the anomaly. Energy blasts filled the space around them, flashing like fireworks in the void. The Odyssey, the flagship of humanity's fleet, was locked in a fierce exchange of fire with one of the enemy ships. The shields were holding, but just barely. Sarah Larkin, her hands tight on the controls, watched the screens with a sharp eye. Every second felt like an eternity. "Shields are down to 30%, Captain," Lieutenant Rossi shouted from his station. "If we don't pull back soon, we'll be vulnerable." Sarah clenched her jaw. There was no easy way out of this. The fleet had already lost a few smaller ships, and more were being damaged with each passing minute. The enemy ships were relentless, powerful, and faster than anything humanity had encountered before. For the first time since they'd left Earth, Sarah felt the weight of their decision to leave the Galactic Council. They had thought they were escaping the politics and control of the galaxy, but now they were in a far more dangerous situation, one they hadn't been prepared for. "Captain," came the voice of Commander Hale, the tactical officer. "There's something strange. I'm detecting massive energy readings from the center of the anomaly. It's not just the enemy ships. There's something else in there, something huge." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. The enemy ships weren't the only threat. "Can you get a visual on it?" she asked, her voice tight with urgency. Hale worked quickly, his fingers flying over the controls. "Trying now, Captain. Just a few more seconds." The view screen in front of Sarah flickered, and for a brief moment, everything went dark. Then, slowly, the image sharpened, and what appeared before them was unlike anything they could have imagined. Deep within the heart of the anomaly, an ancient structure was revealed. A massive, decaying city, its twisted spires reaching up like the bones of some long-dead creature. The structure seemed to pulse with an eerie glow, as if it were alive, and its massive shadow stretched across the expanse of space. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, stunned. The city was enormous, its shape almost incomprehensible. It looked like nothing from the galaxy they knew. "It's alien," Hale muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "But it's not like anything we've ever seen. This is old. Older than any civilization we've encountered. It looks like it's been abandoned for eons." Sarah's mind raced. Was this the source of the enemy ships? Had they been guarding this forgotten city, or was it a mere coincidence that humanity had stumbled into this ancient place? Either way, this city was a key piece of the puzzle. "Hold position," Sarah ordered. "We need to learn more about this place. If we're going to survive, we need to understand what we're up against." The fleet slowly pulled back, keeping its distance from the anomaly. The enemy ships continued their assault, but the humans had bought themselves some time. Now they had a chance to figure out what lay beyond the veil of the anomaly. Sarah stood up from her chair and walked over to the holographic map of the galaxy. The structure inside the anomaly wasn't on any of their charts. It had never been discovered. And now, it seemed that humanity had stumbled upon something far greater than they ever imagined. As the fleet took a moment to regroup, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. They had left the known galaxy behind, but they had entered an entirely new realm, one that was filled with ancient mysteries and dangerous forces. And now, they were at the heart of it. "We need to explore that city," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "It could hold the answers we need to win this fight and secure our future, no matter the cost." The crew nodded in agreement. Humanity had faced countless challenges in the past. This would be no different. They would face whatever lay ahead, but they would face it together. The battle raged on in the vast emptiness of space, the human fleet struggling against the mysterious alien ships that had emerged from the anomaly. The enemy ships were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. Despite their technological superiority, the humans refused to back down. The Odyssey, the flagship of the fleet, fired back with all its might, its powerful weapons lighting up the darkness of space. But the enemy ships seemed endless, and for every blast that hit one of them, two more replaced it. Captain Sarah Larkin stood at the helm, her hand steady on the controls. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her focus was unwavering. The crew was working together, doing everything they could to keep the ship intact, but there was only so much they could do against an unknown enemy. "Captain, the shields are failing." Lieutenant Rossi, the fleet's chief engineer, shouted from his station. "We can't hold out much longer." Sarah clenched her fists. They had to do something, or they would lose everything. She wasn't about to let humanity's future end here, in this dark and dangerous place. They had fought too hard to be free, too long to carve out their own destiny. The stakes had never been higher. "All ships, fall back to formation." Sarah ordered. "Reinforce the shields. Target the enemy ship's engines. We need to slow them down." As the fleet adjusted its position, Sarah glanced at the view screen. The enemy ships were closing in. There was no time to think about escape. They had to fight. But as she stared at the screen, something caught her attention. A strange pulse emanating from the center of the anomaly. It was faint at first, almost like a whisper across the stars, but it was growing stronger with each passing second. "Commander Hale," Sarah said, turning to her tactical officer. "What's that signal?" "It's coming from the center of the anomaly." Hale's fingers danced across his console, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed the readings. "I'm not sure, Captain. It's not like anything we've encountered. It's almost like a beacon. But it's old, too old." A cold shiver ran down Sarah's spine. Whatever it wasn't a coincidence. The enemy ships were drawn to it. They had come here for a reason. Sarah turned to her crew, determination hardening her voice. "We can't win this battle unless we understand what's happening in the center of that anomaly," she said. "We need to send a team in. They might be our only chance to figure this out and stop these ships." "Are you sure, Captain?" Hale asked, his voice tight with concern. "That anomaly could be hiding more than just enemy ships. It could be dangerous." "I know," Sarah said, locking eyes with him. "But we don't have a choice. If we're going to survive, we have to know what we're up against." With no other options left, Sarah made the call. A small team of the fleet's best officers would make the dangerous journey to investigate the center of the anomaly. The team, led by Commander Hale, would venture into the heart of the unknown to discover what secrets it held. As the team prepared to depart, Sarah felt the weight of the decision. She had just sent them into the unknown, knowing that they might not return. But humanity had always been willing to take risks, to face the unknown head-on. Now the future of their journey depended on the brave few who would enter the heart of the anomaly. Outside, the battle continued. The fleet was holding its ground, but the enemy ships were relentless. Sarah turned to the view screen again, watching as the faint glow of the anomaly flickered in the distance. It was now their only hope. "Good luck, Commander," Sarah whispered to herself. "Find the answers we need." And with that, the team entered the anomaly, disappearing into the darkness. The human fleet remained in a defensive formation, the constant hum of energy shields and the sound of laser blasts filling the command deck of the Odyssey. The battle with the alien ships continued, but Sarah Larkin's thoughts were elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about the small team that had ventured into the heart of the anomaly. They were humanity's only hope of finding out what was happening and possibly turning the tide in their favor. Hours passed, and the tension in the air seemed to grow thicker with each moment. Sarah stared at the view screen, her mind still focused on the unknown, on what the team might discover. The enemy ships had slowed their assault, possibly waiting for their reinforcements, or perhaps unsure of how to continue after humanity's unexpected resistance. But it was clear, the humans had gained their attention, and the enemy wasn't going to let them go without a fight. "Captain," Lieutenant Rossi's voice pulled Sarah from her thoughts. "We've got something on long-range sensors. It's not the enemy ships. It's something else." Sarah's pulse quickened. "What is it?" "It's a massive energy source, Captain. Coming from the center of the anomaly, Rossi reported. The readings are off the charts. This could be the source of the power behind the enemy ships. Sarah leaned forward, her mind racing. If they could somehow disable this source, they might stand a chance of stopping the alien ships and gaining control of the situation. The team inside the anomaly might have already found it, but until they received a report, the humans would have to hold their ground. As the fleet adjusted its position, Sarah's mind turned to the team led by Commander Hale. She had sent them into the anomaly with little knowledge of what they would face, but she trusted them. Hale and his team were the best the fleet had to offer. If anyone could find the key to stopping this, it was them. Back inside the anomaly, Hale's team had just completed their initial scan of the enormous structure they had discovered. The city, ancient and seemingly forgotten by time, stretched for miles, its massive spires reaching into the dark sky. The team stood in awe at the sight of it. The city was alive with energy, its long-forgotten systems still operating, albeit in a damaged state. The technology that powered the city was ancient, older than anything humanity had ever encountered. But it was clear to Hale and his team that this city was far more than just a relic. It was the key to everything. "Commander, I think we found it," Lieutenant Carter, the ship's lead engineer, said as he scanned the central structure. "This isn't just a city. It's some sort of power hub. The energy flowing through it, it's immense. Can we access it?" Hale asked, his voice steady, though a flicker of excitement was in his eyes. "We can try," Carter replied, "but I'll need time. The systems here are complex, and we're dealing with technology that's far beyond our understanding." As Carter began working on the ancient technology, the team moved carefully through the city, scanning for anything that might give them an edge. The air was thick with mystery, and the sense of danger was ever present. The strange pulse that had drawn them in was still felt, a hum deep in their bones. Whatever had caused this city's destruction and hidden it from the galaxy was still lurking within its walls. Hale's mind raced as he processed the possibilities. They had discovered something far more dangerous than they had imagined. The enemy ships had been drawn to this place. But why? And what would happen if they succeeded in unlocking its power? Back on the Odyssey, Sarah watched the signals from the anomaly with growing concern. The enemy ships were positioning themselves again, clearly preparing for another assault. But humanity's fight was not over yet. The answers to everything lay in that city, and Hale's team was humanity's only chance to turn the tide. They had to succeed. "Commander, you've got to make it out of there," Sarah whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship. "We need you." As humanity's fleet continued to hold its ground in the depths of space, Sarah Larkin's thoughts remained on Commander Hale and his team. Hours had passed since they entered the heart of the anomaly, and no communication had come through. The battle outside the anomaly was growing more intense, the enemy ships relentless in their pursuit. But every moment Sarah spent looking at the view screen, she couldn't help but wonder, what had Hale and his team found? And would they be able to stop the power at the center of the anomaly? The tension was thick as the enemy ships began to regroup, their movements precise, as though they were preparing for one final push. Sarah knew that their fleet couldn't hold out much longer without reinforcements. But just as the situation seemed dire, a new signal came through, a signal from Hale's team. "Captain," Lieutenant Rossi said, his voice filled with urgency, "we've got a transmission from Commander Hale's team." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "Patch it through." The voice of Commander Hale crackled through the speaker, sounding strained but resolute. "Captain, we found it. The power source. It's real. And it's more dangerous than we ever imagined. But we've also found something else. Something that could change everything." Sarah leaned forward, her mind racing. "What is it, Commander? What did you find?" Hale's voice grew steady. "We discovered an ancient artificial intelligence. It's the one controlling the energy source. And it's not a friendly entity. It's been lying dormant for centuries, waiting to be awakened. The enemy ships, They're controlled by it. They're its protectors, its servants, and it wants to use them to spread its power across the galaxy. We can't shut it down from here, but if we can access the central core, we might be able to turn it against itself. Sarah's mind raced as she processed the information. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight against an ancient force that had been waiting for its moment to strike. The stakes had never been higher. "We need to act fast," Sarah said, her voice urgent. "How much time do we have before the enemy attacks again?" "We don't know," Hale replied. "But we've got to disable the central core before they can reactivate the city's systems. If they succeed, there's no telling what kind of destruction they can cause." Without hesitation, Sarah made her decision. "All ships, prepare for an all-out assault. We can't wait any longer. Commander Hale, we'll cover your team. Get to that core, and we'll make sure nothing stands in your way." The fleet adjusted its position, the human ships taking up a defensive formation around the anomaly. As the enemy ships advanced, the humans readied their weapons, determined to protect the team inside. But Sarah knew that even with the fleet's strength, the real fight would happen inside the city, where Hale's team had to face the ancient AI controlling everything. The battle outside intensified as the human ships fired relentlessly at the enemy, their shields buckling under the assault. But in the heart of the anomaly, Hale's team made their way to the core. They fought their way through the ruined city, its ancient walls crumbling under the weight of the energy coursing through it. When Hale and his team reached the central core, they found the heart of the anomaly, a massive, glowing structure pulsing with energy. It was beautiful, terrifying, and deadly. The AI was alive and watching them. "This is it," Hale whispered to his team. "We can either shut it down or watch the galaxy fall under its control." With one final breath, Hale activated the terminal, sending a surge of energy into the heart of the core. Back on the Odyssey, Sarah held her breath as the battle outside continued. She knew that the fate of humanity and the galaxy rested on what happened next. Would Hale's team succeed? Would they destroy the AI before it could unleash its power? The next few moments felt like an eternity. The moment stretched into eternity. On the Odyssey, Captain Sarah Larkin stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the screen, her thoughts racing. Outside, the battle raged on. The human fleet was fighting with everything it had, but Sarah knew the real battle was taking place within the heart of the anomaly. Hale's team was inside that ancient city, fighting to disable the power source that had kept the galaxy in check for centuries. If they succeeded, it would mean freedom for humanity. But if they failed, the enemy's control over the galaxy would be absolute. The transmission from Commander Hale had cut off unexpectedly just after he activated the core. Silence filled the bridge of the Odyssey as Sarah held her breath, waiting for any sign that Hale's team was still alive. The enemy ships continued their relentless assault, but Sarah's focus was unwavering. The fate of their fleet and humanity was hanging in the balance. Then, just as the last of the energy shields on the Odyssey flickered out, the communication system buzzed to life. The voice of Commander Hale came through, breathless and ragged, but unmistakably alive. "Captain," Hale's voice crackled over the speaker, "we did it. The core is shut down, but it wasn't easy. The AI fought back, harder than we ever expected. We've disabled the power source, but the city's systems are still trying to reactivate. We need an evacuation, now." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. They had done it. They had stopped the ancient AI and destroyed the source of the enemy ship's power. But now, they had to escape before the city's collapsing systems destroyed everything. "Commander, get out of there, now," Sarah shouted, her voice tight with urgency. "We'll cover you. The fleet is holding position. Just get to the ships." There was a pause before Hale's voice came through again, this time sounding more strained. "We're on our way, Captain, but you need to hurry. The city's collapsing faster than we thought." Without wasting another second, Sarah ordered the fleet to retreat, The ships pulled back from the enemy forces, narrowly avoiding a final volley of fire from the now disorganized alien fleet. Humanity's victory was in sight, but they couldn't afford to be caught in the destruction that was unfolding inside the anomaly. On the surface of the city, Hale and his team sprinted toward the extraction point, the crumbling ruins of the ancient city shaking with each step they took. The AI, though disabled, had triggered the city's self-destruct sequence as a last act of vengeance. The ground trembled beneath them, and energy pulses crackled through the air, making it difficult to keep their footing. "Come on, just a little further," Hale urged, his voice tight with exertion. His team pushed on, adrenaline driving them as they neared the waiting human ships. The escape wasn't easy, but they had no choice but to keep going. If they failed now, it would all have been for nothing. Back on the Odyssey, Sarah watched the monitors, counting the seconds. She could feel the tension in the air, every officer on the bridge waiting for news. The battle was over, but the real question now was whether Hale's team would make it out in time. Finally, the signal came through. The team had made it. They were aboard their ships and leaving the city behind. The galaxy had been saved, but the cost was high. Many lives had been lost, and the fight had taken everything humanity had to give. As Sarah sat down in her chair, the weight of the moment settled over her. They had won, but it had come at a great price. The victory was theirs, but the road ahead was uncertain. They had escaped the clutches of the Galactic Council, defeated an ancient enemy, and freed themselves. But what would they do now? The future was open, and it was up to humanity to choose their path. "Mission complete," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with both relief and sadness. "Humanity is free." The Odyssey drifted silently through space, its massive form a symbol of the strength and resilience humanity had shown. The battle was over, but the cost had been heavy. The fleet had survived the deadly encounter with the ancient alien forces, and Commander Hale's team had successfully disabled the AI that had controlled the enemy. The city inside the anomaly was now nothing more than ruins, its secrets lost to time. The threat that had loomed over humanity was gone, but the road ahead was uncertain. On the bridge of the Odyssey, Captain Sarah Larkin sat in her chair, staring out into the vast expanse of space. Her fingers rested lightly on the armrests, the weight of leadership heavy on her shoulders. The stars outside were as beautiful as they were silent, and for the first time in a long while, Sarah felt a sense of peace. Humanity had fought for its freedom and had earned it. They had proven that they were not just survivors but pioneers, capable of facing the unknown and conquering it. "Captain," Lieutenant Rossi said, his voice breaking the quiet, "we've received a message from the fleet. They're all in position. We're ready to begin our next phase." Sarah nodded, though her eyes didn't leave the stars. "What's the next phase, Lieutenant?" "We're going to establish a new colony, a new home. Earth is no longer a place we can depend on," Rossi replied, his tone steady but filled with the same sense of uncertainty that Sarah felt. "We have resources, but we need to start building something for the future. We can't just wander in space forever." Sarah sighed deeply, her mind turning over the enormity of what lay ahead. Earth was still recovering, and while the fleet had fought hard for their survival, they had no real place to call home now. They were free from the Galactic Council, but in their freedom, they faced new challenges, new opportunities, new choices. "We need to find a planet, a place where we can start over. A place that's ours," Sarah said quietly, the weight of her words settling over the crew. "Something where we can build a future, not just for us, but for all of humanity." "Agreed, Captain," Rossi said. "There are a few systems we've been tracking. We've had scouts scanning planets for resources, and there are a few options. None of them are perfect, but they might be enough to begin." The ship's engines hummed softly, and the crew went to work. They had faced the impossible, and now they had a chance to build something new. But as Sarah thought about the future, she knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had learned much during their journey through the stars, about themselves, about the galaxy, and about the price of freedom. They had left the old world behind, but they had no intention of repeating the mistakes of the past. The people of Earth had faced challenges that would have broken many other species, but they had stood tall, united by their desire to live freely without oppression. Now, the galaxy was theirs to explore, to shape, to make their own. In the distance, a planet loomed, bathed in the soft glow of a nearby star. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning, a fresh start. It was a place where humanity could rebuild, where they could carve out a new future. "Prepare to set course for the new colony," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "Let's go home." And with that, humanity's next chapter began, in the vastness of space, with hope in their hearts and a new world ahead of them. They were free, and they would make the most of it.